Hey, hello, good day. Welcome to Mid-Round Call, the Counter-Strike podcast, where we talk about surprise, Counter-Strike, and not viruses. It's crazy. It's amazing. I'm axtremes, and with me is HAzE. I've also got Profeci over here, long-time casting partners. I split myself between them, split personalities. It's a shared relationship. It's open. How you guys doing?
Jeez. How do you follow up from that?
I only found out that it's shared and open right now.
You thought it was exclusive?
Yeah. This is getting interesting.
What a liar.
Absolute liar. Duplicitous is what the word I'd use, and I'm sure a lot of people don't understand what that means, so I would go with Google. It's a good source of information on those sorts of things anyway. Don't know about everything.
Is it though?
Is it?
The best and worst thing that's ever happened.
Yes. Well, this is possibly something you could use to describe this podcast as well. The best and worst thing to ever happen to us when talking about Counter-Strike. We are, of course, South African CSGO commentators. We talk about wild animals. No, we don't. We talk about wild animals in the sense of CSGO players that are slightly wild. People like Sonic who wander around at Flashpoint and get 5 kills in a 1v5.
Yeah, it's pretty nutty.
Yeah, so we've been talking about Counter-Strike for a lot of years. And we thought we'd talk about it on a podcast. Not our first rodeo on this either. We've all done lots of podcasts, but never like this. Never with holes in the screen behind us.
Yeah, this is our third episode, of course, so we're starting to learn the reins. I mean, you guys have got a bit more podcast experience than I do, so...
Would it be fair to say that Mid-Round Call has the most holes of any podcast?
Most holes.
Yes, have you seen the overlay?
I have the standard amount.
You do, okay. So you came equipped.
Can't speak for you though.
Well, I mean, you're never going to find out. Eh? Just saying. This is getting derailed, so let's I guess reattach the rails. I don't know where you really go with that one, but let's talk about actual Counter-Strike. So after a disastrous intro, absolutely didn't do anything that I was planning to do. We'll move over to IEM Predictions, which was equally disastrous for us when we did it a couple weeks ago. We haven't done a podcast for a couple weeks. Of course, I grew hair, had it cut off, grew it again, cut it off. Now I'm bald again. I mean, new glasses, traded in my car for a hovercraft and went back to the car again. All sorts of stuff can happen in 2 weeks. And including in that was IEM Katowice, in which our predictions went horribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean... Who would have expected G2 to put the run together as they did? I'll give Matt some props. He did say that they were one of those teams that could go crazy, but I didn't.
Hang on, I actually said G2 could potentially win this, and both of you poo-pooed me. I distinctly remember that.
Well,
both of you came down on me hard.
You didn't fight for your opinion, so you lose that opinion automatically.
What?
I seem to remember your end choice was Australis anyway.
My end choice, yes, but I did say at one point that there's a lot of teams that could win this, including you two, and you were both like, no way.
It's easy to throw a couple names in the hat,
exactly.
Though.
Like,
everyone only remembers the one name that you lay your hat on.
Did you put your money on G2?
No.
No?
No. Well, I mean, I went to Australis, and they came 3rd, 4th, so that's not too bad. I mean, did either of you get in the top 4?
Winners.
Let's just ask that. Who did you predict there, Matt?
I went with FaZe Clan, and they lost to the eventual winners twice. So that's my my solace.
They did a South African Counter-Strike team when traveling internationally. Don't worry, guys, we came last, but we lost to the guys who won, so it's all good, right?
Fair enough, yeah. But I mean, if you also have a look at how they performed against Na'Vi, they seemed to push Na'Vi a lot harder than a lot of the other teams did. If you think about the grand final, the game against Australis, it was a lot more one-sided than what the best of 3 was against FaZe Clan. They picked up the first map, and I think another one went to 16-14, so it got really close. So I think FaZe Clan have definitely they warranted the pick at the end of the day, even though they didn't reach the playoffs. I think they still look pretty good, and if they had gone to the playoffs just playing a different team, not Na'Vi, probably might have been able to make a decent run of it.
To be fair, Na'Vi did smash everybody once they got to the playoffs, so it's like, how do we really judge exactly where FaZe Clan is? I still think FaZe Clan's a little bit overrated, to be fair. Like, as good as they have been, it's just like I can't buy them being this good consistently.
No,
Like
Sean-
they certainly have like the you know, like the series performance or maybe even like half of a tournament, but like I just don't buy them being that nuts.
See, now this is a much milder version of what you said to me in person, where you actually called them trash. So
no,
yes, you did.
I don't ever remember calling FaZe Clan. There's way too much skill. There's way too much. No, Olofmeister.
He's been struggling
in
quite
relation
a bit
to what he
lately.
used to be. Yeah, in relation to what Olofmeister used to be, he is trash.
And the problem is that they've actually shifted him around quite a lot now and given him a couple of different roles, and he doesn't really seem to be excelling in any of them. I think he's now sort of dropped into the support role, trying to allow everybody else and help everyone else to thrive. But I mean, never thought you'd see the day when Olofmeister has become the support of the team. It's a bit of a disappointing thing.
That is the problem that FaZe has, though, is that like that's kind of what you have to do when you have that lineup. It's like, well, somebody's gonna have to suck it up and like, you know, play the bitch roles.
Yep.
And it just happens to be Olof. Like I do think that Olof's classic skill set is probably the best suited for it as well, because he was sort of just like an all-action, all-rounder during the mid-round, especially where he would like make plays rather than just drop mad numbers on you all the time. So he does sort of fit that the best, but it is still like it's like when you look at that name on paper, you're like, why is Olof playing the bitch roles? I don't understand.
Isn't it tragic if you open the scoreboard and you look at the effective flashes and then Olof's got the biggest number, you know, double digits, and the other guys have got like single digits, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
How does that work? I mean,
That's weird.
I mean, there's a position on a map called Olaf because he was just so ridiculous that he could like rush out and bang off two heads, you know, like drive by with a Tech 9.
Yeah, I suppose we shouldn't. I mean, I can see where this conversation's going. We're going deep in IEM now, and I think we shouldn't stray too far down this rabbit hole because there's a lot of interesting conversations we could
we'll get
have.
there. We
need to finish the prediction talk.
We'll go through. Well, I mean, I also mentioned that Astralis was mine.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about Astralis's performance? They looked a little lackluster to me, like not their usual self, but they, you know, the systems are good enough that they got far.
Yeah.
My problem with them is this, right? All the teams that you'd expect them to beat, they beat fairly comfortably, and then they just got slammed by Na'Vi. Like, it wasn't even a game against Na'Vi. So it's like, so they were solid, and then just got murked.
Jeez, they got murdered in that game.
It's just, I don't know where to put them. But like, the problem is with Astralis is like, I can never really believe, like, when you watch them get like slammed, you're like, but they've done it so many times where they've like lost horribly at an event and then somehow still like at the next event seemed a lot better. So I think I'd probably give them at least another event before I like 100% call them done with this roster or just like not impressed.
I think even another event's probably still premature, to be fair. Like, I mean, like you said, they did look good against the lower tier teams and they weren't at all there against Na'Vi, but yeah, it's still early days for these signs of struggle. I mean, let's not forget that this is the second best of 3 in a row that Na'Vi has beaten them after not beating them on LAN for like, I don't even know. I think they'd never beaten them in a LAN in a best of 3. So now 2 in a row, that's going to be sounding some alarm bells, I think.
Yeah, I think also if you look at the performance from Simple in this game in particular, I mean, he ended up with a 1.79 rating, plus 21, Flamey plus 18, Electronic also plus 21. I mean, just that level of performance is insane. I mean, Boomich was also crazy on the first map, if I recall. So, Astralis's whole style is fundamentally that, hey, we'll do our research, we'll know what you're going to do, we'll have things prepared, you know, we'll back each other up, we'll have amazing team play, some good individual moments that'll get us across the line comfortably. And in this case, I mean, you can't really study that Simple's going to do crazy things with an AWP.
Yeah.
There's no way to. I mean, they've effectively countered him plenty of times in the past. It's just felt like here they didn't actually have an effective answer to him because he was just burning like supernova bright. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is his team now, though, right? This is literally Simple's team at this point, and I think there's nothing else in his way from actually achieving the vision that he has.
Which is winning everything.
See, he sits in the middle even. Like, that's normally the IGL's place, but not in this team. It's Simple
just
because
he
knows.
Powers from the middle.
Yeah, he's actually like, he's accepted and he's thriving under the fact that he is the best player in the world, and he wants to allow that energy to perpetuate throughout his team. So when a player embraces that, rather than like starts to feel pressure from that title, scary stuff can actually start happening, you know.
So we'll move on very soon, but the one thing I do want to say that's just so insane about Navi's run to win this and the current team as a whole is all it took for Simple to be activated and to become like Super Saiyan, this team to be, well, now the best team in the world according to the HLTV ratings, or HLTV rankings, shall I say, was one okay player. Just an okay player. Basically, we went from, you know, Guardian, who was like horrendously underperforming. Before that, you had Zeus and Edward, who were like two big fat boat anchors on the team at times.
Yeah.
And now all it took was a guy who's just not shit. That's the only thing you can say for him. He's just not shit. He's okay. And they're suddenly the best team in the world. Crazy.
Yeah, he seems to have a cool head on his shoulders. He's solid in the clutch as well. He won a bunch of 1 versus 2s at the event. So just like you said, he's able to perform the basic functions as well. And look at what it's enabled with both Flamey and Electronic at the top of their game as well. You don't need somebody else who needs to frag hard. You just need somebody who's going to keep the structure in place and play to the same vision as everybody else. You know, no ego involved. It's just about winning.
I love what you said there. He just fulfills the basic functions. It's like all you have to do is
fulfills. I said he's good at them.
It's just all you have to do is be a Counter-Strike player.
That's won. Like in the final, he didn't die on Mirage in the first half.
To be fair, like he wasn't really involved. He was just like rotating.
That's what I'm saying.
They were all dead when he got there. Or he, like,
I could have been on that Mirage.
Kills.
I could have been in that Mirage game, and I would have like contributed as much as he. That's what it felt like. It's just like
I don't know. Let's not take too much away from him. I mean, he had some impressive moments in the competition. Like
in that Mirage game, he did
fair enough.
Like he's just the rotator who comes in and like gets 1 kill on the retake, and then it's like ends up with not dying and being. What was he like? He was like 16-0 or something, or 17-0 at the half, right?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't that high. He was like 8 kills total at that point, dude.
It
was like nuts to see. Like they just never went B side.
That was the one where Boomich like just absolutely like.
He got like the 30 kills at halftime or something.
My problem is that's why I'm like, I'm not out on this Na'Vi team, but like I just have questions. It's just like I can't believe that all of them are gonna pop off like this again, because they all went nuts. Like I mean, Boomich had that one game where he was like plus 180 R. With he was like 26 kills or something on Nuke, where he was winning straight up gun duels with an MP9 against full AK buys.
Yeah, that was crazy.
The thing is, though, ask yourself this, Sean: who's capable right now of stopping them, of like actually being able to shut down these players? Like maybe Australis once they get their ass into gear, but who else do you think has really got the skill to shut down this type of playstyle that they're employing? Like in the next 3 months,
if Liquid could ever get their shit in order, maybe they could do it, but. They seemingly have just decided, now we're cool, we're just going to like be a severely average team for what should be a much better squad.
I
don't understand why Liquid is as bad as they do. It's just like...
Yeah.
It is crazy. No, I think you're right, Matt. It's very hard to see anyone, if they perform like this, actually standing against them. But I think Sean's also got a point there. Like,
I agree.
You know, Boomich isn't always going to do that. That like his career hasn't suggested that he's that kind of player. Actually, you know. So, but I guess he was feeling it. They were all feeling it. You could just see there was like an infectious energy in Na'Vi. None of that horrible like tilty crap that used to happen with that team, which is nice to see as well. It was comedy gold, of course, but
and then coupled with Blade in the back lines as well, just instilling the structure and making sure that
at the heavens and getting instructions from on high. You know,
exactly.
What a weird dude.
Yeah. There's just way too many like perfect calls from Na'Vi, and then like where like another round where they'll just run in, like one guy just like bangs off the player's head as he runs into the site. It's just like, sure, that's definitely going to happen every time you play this map.
We'll call that the run in one bang strategy.
I don't even understand
like
that.
Apex and Envy in 2015 or something, like run in and do that.
It was like just crazy to watch that, and it was just, I mean, it's exhilarating to watch, but like something in the back of my brain just like, I just can't believe that's going to happen again. Like Liquid did it last year, and FaZe did it 3 years ago, but it's just like,
never sustainable.
Is that really going to happen again? Like
never-
those teams
Yeah.
flamed out.
Fair enough.
that
It's never
while-
proved to
after
be
a while.
sustainable. I mean, you could even accuse sort of 87-0 Nip of being that, and Fnatic when they won the 6 tournaments back to back, 2015, 2016. It's kind of never been like it's mad. It's sort of lightning in a bottle, but it escapes eventually.
Yeah.
Is kind of how that goes. So, talking about escaping, I guess, Matt, your prediction of mouse sports. Well, it escapes me why you predicted
I
that.
predicted
Sean.
mouse
Oh,
sports.
Sean.
I
Okay.
predicted mouse
See, that
sports.
escaped me totally. It's just like I said it was the wrong person.
Dude, explain to me how mouse sports could have been that bad.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Like,
man.
they just, I don't even understand how they should have had it. They had the easier group. I expected them to at least like make it to the playoffs and just got slammed. It's just so strange.
Even Dupree was saying that he sees them as the favorites to win the event, and they get knocked out by 100 Thieves, a team that was looking incredibly lackluster at the start of the event and at the end of the previous event that they were playing at. So that's just not an acceptable game to lose, especially when you look at that second map they lost. After winning the first map 16-10, they go to their map pick Dust 2 and they lose Dust. Mouse Sports losing Dust 2, a map that's like supposed to be their bread and butter. Players like Woxic, and you're losing to 100 Thieves. I can't
Doesn't
understand
this, though, like,
that.
prove
yeah.
that whole sort of theory? I mean, we've all spoken about it over the years. This version of Dust 2 and previous versions, it's like you never want that to be a map that's actually one of your sort of primary maps, just because of the variability, where you can just get banged out by like a crazy performance from one or two players. So, I mean, I've always thought Dust 2 is a severely risky pick if it's going to be like your first pick. So
your home map, basically.
Yeah, if it's your home map, I mean, you're going to get knocked over by some randoms at some point. I'm not calling 100 Thieves randoms here, but they had no business winning this game. Honestly.
Especially given how they started the event, they looked
Exactly. It was dire.
terrible coming into that, and then they just like turned it on and looked actually pretty good going towards the the semifinals or whatever they eventually made it to. But yeah, that was like another one of those super strange sequences where like the team should have made it through that. Like given their just recent pedigree, you'd expect them to make it out of that.
Yeah.
But it did not happen. They got
So
the two.
that's predictions.
Yeah, I'll say they got the 2-0 over Mad Lions. The vintage Mad Lions team that we'll think about with fondness. When Hunden was still in the team.
Yeah, there'll be a part of our conversation a bit later when the Flashpoint teams come up.
So sad. Hurts my heart, boys. Hurts my heart. Our Lord and Savior is no longer in Mad Lions. What the hell? Gone. So Flashpoint is something we will actually talk about. Let's talk about ESL Pro League and Flashpoint, because I mean, as of recording this podcast, Pro League has just started today. We've seen a few games, a horrendous opening game, fair to say. Flashpoint, some horrendous audio at the very beginning on the weekend, and they sort of sorted that out. So we've got a fairly good idea of what the broadcasts are like, what they're about. So, I mean, to me, EPL seems like it's kind of taking the same formula that ESL Pro League has taken before, except now, of course, it's online only because of the COVID-19/coronavirus fears. They're not doing LAN anymore. So it's kind of that classic ESL studio broadcast. We've done it with ESL Africa. We know how that goes. And when you watch it, it gives you that sort of vibe of kind of like, I don't know, watching the B stream of Katowice with the boys in Cologne and, players playing from another location or whatever. Flashpoint, very different though. I mean, it has that sort of vibe of like a Blast Premier or an E-League, but it does have that added element of fun and banter and a couple of extra cool production touches. So it is doing something different. So I think that they're different enough that we can compare them. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think ESL's obviously gone for their they love that the traditional professionalism approach. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's perfectly fine. It works pretty well. Whereas Flashpoint's got the more like the rebel ideological, like the guys that are trying to be the badasses. And sometimes it works, but like that first day where they had like a whole bunch of players there, like some of those players clearly had like no idea how to talk shit to each other.
Yes.
Like they just sort of sit there and like they like sit quietly, and you're like, that's just stereotypical nerd, not really.
Yeah,
because I mean, like some of it isn't far off from like you're a poofy head, kind of stupid, just it doesn't really like land. But there was a couple of things that were pretty good. I mean, Smooya's been pretty fire. I mean, he's that kind of personality already, so this is almost sort of enabling him to build the cult of the Rat King a little bit further.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely he's certainly one of those players who Flashpoint would have been hoping to get or acquire as a part of their competition. Of course, Chaos was invited after they lost in the qualifier. You know,
yeah,
there's a lot of
like sketchy shit.
Yeah, it becomes quite an interesting conversation, especially with this new FPX roster who took over the previous Heroic team. I mean, they were announced a day before the event actually started. They were announced as a partner team. So, I mean, you feel like that wasn't Flashpoint's first choice. They were really looking for somebody to fill that extra 6 slots of a partner team.
I think if you look at this, though, like, it's undeniable that the teams in ESL Pro League are vastly superior to the teams in Flashpoint. So really what Flashpoint has to do is do such a good job with the entertainment aspect that it sort of wins over viewers. And they had a lot of viewers, let's be honest. I mean, like 70k viewers for what are essentially sort of tier 2 teams on Sunday night. Pretty good. The only thing, of course, is you look at ESL Pro Leagues like opening ENCE versus Spirit, which was a horrendous game, horrendous teams right now, and 100k.
Also a CIS team, keep in mind, they tend to draw in a bunch of viewers, but was that just on the English stream alone?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's interesting to see how it's sort of. I think obviously ESL definitely have the brand name in the space. I mean, if you just consider the sheer amount of subscribers on their channel, that's just when the notification pops, there's more people who are likely to see it. So that's definitely part of it. But yeah, as you were saying before the tournament started, the machinations on both sides, where a bunch of teams were committed in principle to Flashpoint, and then ended up going with ESL and signing like multi-year deals with them and whatever. I'm sure the amount of boardroom dancing that was going on and the backroom sort of stabbing and whatever was pretty prolific in this one. So I mean, there is a world that could have happened where you had a few top teams that were actually in Flashpoint, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work out.
I mean, yeah, Thorin has alluded to that a bunch of times on Twitter, actually, and he's even said that coming up in the near future, he's going to be outing all these people who had their bullshit deals and actually didn't go about doing the job by the book. So I think we will be hearing some interesting things. But let's go back to our conversation with Flashpoint and the teams. And I mean, basically, their narrative is that they're going to create such a good product that teams almost end up with either enough money to buy those really good players to bring them to the league, or teams actually are just persuaded to jump over and sign with Flashpoint. And it's based on 2 things. It's based on the content they're going to create and the brand that they're going to content, and include the teams in that. And the other is the revenue share. Yeah. Supposedly, they've got a superior revenue share with the partner teams compared to ESL Pro League. So, of course, that's another really important aspect to consider as well, because they're basically equipping these teams with the money to buy the players, to bring them over, to keep making them more money. So it's a sustainable system when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty cool product overall. And like people in the know do seem to say that the Flashpoint model is the superior model. So
yeah, that's what I'm basing it off as well, to be fair.
I guess if you look at it as well, like if you're a team, it's the same as if you're getting a new job in the real world. You get an offer from one lot and you have a current job. What most people are going to do is they're going to take that offer over to their current employers and say, well, listen, this is what's on the table for me. It's more than what you're giving me. So, you know, if you could come to the party, I'm happy to stay. And then, you know, they'll offer you more or they won't. And if they value you, they'll offer you more. And in the case of a Counter-Strike team, you're taking this Flashpoint offer, you're going back to ESL Pro League and saying, well, you know, what are you going to do for me, ESL? And invariably ESL are going to go, well, you're a top 10 team in the world, you're drawing all this fan base, you're going to put eyes on our competition, so we don't want to lose you, so we're going to make concessions or some case of some sort. So I mean, I think that's most likely how this has gone down. So I mean, it could be perceived as backstabbing and this and that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's also a very pragmatic approach that, I mean, let's be honest, any of us in the real world, again, if it was a job situation, that's probably the way you'd go about it. But again, I'm not privy to what's going on behind the scenes, so it's just my bullshit opinion there. There probably is some crazy crap that went on behind the scenes. We'll have to wait for that Thorin Scorched Earth video to figure out.
let's not forget all the drama, because we haven't actually spoken about that on any of our podcasts yet, about how ESL Pro League cut a bunch of the teams from season 10 without any warning or any information. Just a lot of them purely based off of ESL's own decisions in terms of who they thought would bring more money or bring more viewership. If you look at Complexity, for example, received an incredibly lucky draw in that regard, and you got to feel really sorry
Virtus.pro
for a few
draw.
of the teams.
Let's be honest. You remember Virtus.pro? It's like, oh, they're about to be relegated. Wait, we'll make a competition where they can unrelegate themselves, and then it's like every season it was like some bullshit way that Virtus.pro managed to find its way back into EPL.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a something that you can't just gloss over. You need to keep that in mind as well, because I mean, it has been known in the past that ESL Pro League have also been, I don't know if vindictive is the right word to use in their approach, and always trying to one up their opposition. So
business, bro.
It's
it is.
They're gonna do.
Yeah.
You want to get salty out of business being assholes. It's like, well, I mean, you don't understand how the system works.
They're putting themselves first. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
That's kind of what they got to do. So I mean, you can't really blame a lion for chasing down a gazelle and eating it. I mean, that's what it does. It's its function. The business's function is make profit, and let's be honest, in esports, there's precious little of that. So they're going to be ruthless in going for that.
Yeah, but the problem was that the way they went about doing it. It's I'm not taking issue that they're chasing like more profitability. It's just like the methodology and the way they went about it is very questionable.
No, I think it was bullshit. It was total bullshit. I mean, if you're a team and you've based your entire financial model on being in ESL Pro League, you've gone to your sponsors and you've told them, listen, this is the broadcast situation. We're guaranteed this amount of games in a season. This is how many viewers were in the previous seasons. You have all of these deliverables with sponsors that you're going to be telling them you can provide to them. And now suddenly you can't provide that because you and I are registered MDL casters. I mean, would we get paid if we casted MDL? No. I mean, why is that? Because despite the sort of perception of it from the outside, it is a much lower tier competition, and these teams are all dropped one division down to MDL. So, I mean, it doesn't have the viewership. It doesn't have the prize money. It's far less prestigious. ESL tried to sort of spin it and say, hey, it's a good thing, but of course we know it's not a good thing. It was terrible. Verifiably terrible what they did to those teams. But again, I understand why they did it, but it doesn't make it any less crap.
Yeah, their excuse is that the plans were constantly changing and they could never actually take a concrete finalized document or finalized plan to the teams and say this is exactly what's happening. So they decided, instead of just giving half information and changing the next day, they'd rather just leave them in the dark entirely. So,
I read that as they were like, Flashpoint, oh shit. Okay, we better do something. Because, I mean, I don't know how seriously they took it at first, but it did seem like it just sort of reached ahead where it came to a head, shall I say, where the public perception behind Flashpoint was so positive. I think ESL were like, okay, we have to make some moves to sort of cut these guys off at the knees so that they can't threaten us. And while securing all the teams that they managed to secure, I think that went a long way towards it. And if you're going to cut down the number of teams, that also probably means you can give them a bit more rev share, things like that. Again, speculation on my part, I don't know, but I would imagine that's probably part of the reason why they would have done that, so that they could offer guys a little bit more of the financial incentive like Flashpoint were offering. So I don't know, maybe we'll find out in coming years how this has worked, but yeah, it seems like since then the public perception of Flashpoint has definitely switched, because I mean, we kind of know this thing from the political situation in our country, the DA versus the ANC. If the opposition to the guys who big, the guys who are in power with all the prestige and the wealth, if the opposition's only tactic is to tell everyone how shit the guys in pole position are, then eventually you start to get upset about hearing that. You're like, stop telling me how shit they are. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how people have started to react to them. And to be fair to them, they did actually say what they're going to do. They did put out cool content and do like podcasts weekly leading up to the competition to tell people about what they're doing. But it just seemed like the banging on Flashpoint on EPL sort of got to people's got a bit nerves.
Annoying after a while.
So yeah, it just.
I mean,
we
say Flashpoint, but we 93% mean Thorin. To be fair.
Yeah, let's be honest on that. I think in Thorin's own way, he's being entirely authentic, because his motivation does seem to be like, listen, I want the best for players, and I'm going to say what I think. So if Flashpoint's whack, I'm going to say it. I mean, actually has said that. He does criticize tournaments that he actually works for pretty routinely. Is probably one of the only people who gets away with it. But
I mean, he even made that statement that he won't work for ESL until they, I'm not sure, until they figure out or resolve what happened leading into ESL Pro League Season 11. He sent a tweet out about that. I don't know if that still stands.
It was that unless ESL puts out the names of those people who were responsible for the...
Oh yeah, and they don't work for them anymore.
Yeah, then he's...
So I'm just saying, it's quite an extreme step that he's taken. That eliminates potential majors, Cologne, Katowice.
He's been pretty confident in just giving up those before, so it's not like it's a massive change.
Yeah, that's true. I think... To me at least, I mean, I'm a fan of his work, so I'll freely admit that I got a little bit of bias in that, but he's always been pretty consistent of when he says that this is what he's doing, that's kind of where he goes. So I think people's criticism of him have been, their perception is on not knowing his body of work and not really knowing that much about him, because let's be honest, a lot of people who are into esports and Counter-Strike haven't been around for the decades that he's been around, so they don't know what his track record is, and generally, if he says something like this, he generally has a pretty good reason to say it. Yeah. But again, the public perception is sort of turned against him. I mean, on By the Numbers, Richard was saying to him, like, dude, maybe you need to sort of calm down on the tweets because you are like sort of digging a hole for yourself. But I mean, again, Thorin, he doesn't back down, so he's just kept on going. Yeah.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. Pretty much, like
that is pretty much his
the simplest phrase, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got some really good points as well. So I'm not going to sort of attack him on.
I agree. No, I agree completely. I'm a big fan.
And
of
also,
him.
He's mean on Twitter, so I don't want to fight with Thorin because I actually like Thorin. So.
Yeah, my biggest fear is getting blocked by either him or Richard Lewis, and then and I'm fans of them and like losing the option to follow their content. So I tend to just stray away from like interacting directly.
So you've come with your biggest fear connected to them. My biggest pet peeve connected to either of them is the infamous, I really hate Thorin, but I like his content, kind of thing. Or Richard Lewis is such an asshole, but I really like some he makes some really good points. Like every fucking thing that starts with that triggers the ever living F out of me. Cause I'm just like, why do you have to start your work is good, but you're shit. You're a shit human. I just hate that. And it's just like the amount of people that feel the need to say that, because I guess it's like they're actually a fan of that person's work, but they're like, okay, they don't want to get wrecked by the virtue signalers and the lefties in chat. In the on Twitter, they don't want to get cancelled, so they're gonna first open it with, I don't like this person and he's a bad person, but his work's pretty good. I hate that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will blame you for being bemused by those tendencies. Why don't we jump into the teams of Flashpoint 1? We got 3 groups, 4 teams in each group. Maybe we have a look at each team, or rather each group, and we just sort of break that down and see exactly what we make of them. So I'll start off with Group A. We've got Contact, obviously the ex-Crazy team, Havu, Mad Lions, and Copenhagen Flames.
Wait, I want to stop you there. Don't they have the proper official names for these groups? Where are those official names, Sean?
The official names are not on the HLTV.
Yeah, I'm on HLTV at the moment, so that's what I'm going off of.
That is super sad, because, I mean, Group B is called, Snakes and Ratters, right?
No. Group B is... Group B is Snakes and Ratters. Group C is Assisted Living, because it's all the oldies in that.
So what was Group A, then? I can't remember.
Oh, something like... I didn't enjoy the Group A name. I can't remember what it was now.
See, that was some pretty cool banter. I enjoyed the Snakes and Ratters thing and the Assisted Living thing, because it's much cooler than Group A, B, and C. But HLTV don't want to play ball, man. It just says Group A, Group B, C. Anyway, so you were giving us a very professional thing there before I interrupted you with talking about snakes and
really was it? Yeah, so I mean, of course, there was also some games that played out from Group 1 already, so we have got a bit of insight into how these games or how this group could be playing out. Contact looked pretty good, as did Havu, but of course the elephant in the room is Mad Lions, who, as you spoke about earlier, Mike,
be a Cillian in the room.
relieved Hunden of his duties and brought Asilian back into the mix. It's just the Danish thing to do, right? Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat, hey?
It's gone pretty well for them so far. I mean,
listen, guys, I'm going to be the diplomatic one here. I'm going to be the diplomatic one here and say they've just brought Asilian into the mix. They haven't had enough time to really work things out properly with him and figure out the exact system that they want to employ. It's going to be very different from the way that Hunden played as well. So there's a lot for them to adjust to as well, bringing in a new leader.
Okay, but why do you do that knowing that you're about to start the event in 2 days?
Beats me, Sean. And forfeiting your position at the ESL, the minor qualifiers at least, dude.
That seems like a horrendous decision. Like something must have gone. There must have been some kind of massive argument or something in their team, because those two things seem like unacceptable things to sort of package deal yourself into. It's just it seems crazy to do that. And let's also be honest about HAzE. They're an okay team. They're ranked 30 in the world right now, and I think that's maybe being optimistic on them, because I mean, two of these players. I remember casting ESEA Advanced in 2018 with you, Sean, and Saw and Slowy were in their team. I mean, This is an MDL team, and it's not a team that's even won MDL as far as I know. So why is Mad Lions losing to them? I mean, Mad Lions is a team that was knocking on the door of top 10. You know, they're a team.
Yeah, they got to 11th, I think.
Yeah, they were on the cusp, and now it almost feels to me like I mean, again, Hunden, one of the worst fraggers ever. You've said this before on this podcast, Sean. Hunden is a terrible individual player. He's kind of like Zeus and Edward, as we were talking about earlier on, rolled into one in terms of lack of fragging potential. He's not as good a fragger as either of those two, but he is a tactical genius who has a long track record of building teams to become competitive. And, I mean, he's just been done adapts, basically.
Yeah, and it's just so stupid. It's like they've done the daps to him, and he's just accepted it like daps as well.
He's like, you've been cucked.
Oh no, I'm moving into management. Sure you are. So how long do we wait till until you appear on your next team?
Yeah.
So you just kind of see him there in the office playing solitaire, you know, like on the computer.
Because also remember they've just brought in a coach recently as well. So it's not like they have a coaching position open either, where they can just slot him into.
It's seemingly insane as well, because I mean, isn't their coach? Their coach is
Peacemaker.
Yeah. Because it's just, I mean, he's sort of famously inflexible when it comes to certain sort of principles within his team. So I almost wonder if it wasn't maybe that sort of immovable object meeting inflexible object kind of thing that might have led to some kind of disagreement. Again, speculation, don't know, but I mean, Peacemaker certainly has a long history of being in and out of teams. The out usually when he refuses to compromise on something. Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of feels like more of the same in that regard. And I don't know. Asilian, he's journeyman. He's been around. I mean, I remember him playing for SK Gaming in 2016, that very sort of average Danish team that was around that had the other Nico, not the other Nico, the other Nico.
It was also, that wasn't that the team that Magus Boys started on?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like, you don't really know of any of those players anymore. Asilian hasn't been that active lately. I mean, he's been in a few teams, but not top teams. So how do you trust somebody like that to sort of take you from 11th in the world to further on? Obviously, they've already dropped the 11th rating because they lost one of their players. So I only see a downward spiral here, boys. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not too positive about it either, to be fair. Like you said, it's not like Asilian's track record leads us to believe that this might be the move to break them into the top 10 consistently. I mean, all four of their players outside of their IGL are incredibly capable young individuals, but I just hope we don't see them getting stuck in a rut now, you know, for the next year and a half where they're not really able to reach that potential.
The ENS example would suggest that is going to happen.
So, again, it's just like there's too many similarities to how ENS went down and how every DAPS team has gone down. Like, sure, if you have a better guy to replace Hunden, as in a better fragger and an equivalent IGL, by all means do it. But like,
see, I mean, let
me ask you guys this: how old, without looking now, how old do you think Asilian is?
23.
I would have guessed mid-20s.
Okay, so he's 23. I thought he was a bit older than that, to be fair, just considering how long he's been around the scene for. You think back to those days where he was playing with like Tensky and I can't even remember the other guy's name. He used to play with Freeze as well. Freeze.
Yeah, Freeze is much older though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like that's the early association I have with the Cillion. Like it goes back a long time, even like from when I started watching CS.
You do get the impression he must be like a grizzled veteran, like arthritic.
That's what I mean. He's 23 years old. He's he's a youngster still in the greater scheme of things.
That's crazy, but
or younger rather.
I think he's never really been that sort of, as an individual player, anything special. So you tend to think of players in that way, where you're like, okay, well, they're not an insane fragger, so they must be guys been around for a bit, kind of playing the Neo or the Taz role in some ways. And in their case, they were literally are literally older. So, yeah,
it does feel like this could be his last sort of like big opportunity in a top 15 team. If this doesn't work out well for him,
well, I mean,
I'm not sure many other teams are going to be snapping at his heels.
Let's be honest, that top 15 rating ain't going to be around for much longer. It's just like, enjoy it while it lasts, brother.
Yeah.
That one's going. Let's take a different tack on this one then. If it had been a Danish team, let's just like in an alternate reality where anything is possible. If this had been Carrigan or Glaive or even MSL, or maybe even Snappy, you'd feel like, hey, this is not so bad. I mean, this is a guy with a track record who can do something. He can frag okay, probably invariably a better fragger than Hunden is. This isn't so bad. They could do something, but it's not that.
I think all of those names you mentioned, they would be incredibly happy for. Like, none of those guys would even be remotely options besides maybe like Snappy or something like that. But obviously, he's just signed with Fun plus Phoenix.
The thing is, Snappy's not that much of an upgrade over.
He's just a slight upgrade, but you could still rationalize it. You could find a reason. I mean, the one thing is, Snappy is actually one of the older players, but he's eternally youthful. I mean, he looks like he's 21.
Yeah, he does. Hey, he's got those rosy cheeks.
Yep, it's the Nordic blood. It seems
is.
like, I don't know how.
Okay, so let's not stray too far away. We're looking at Group A here. Who have you got as your top two then?
My top two going in before the event would have started would probably have been, I think, Contact, just because of how nuts the aim can be.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I probably would have taken Mad Lions until the Hunden thing went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been in the same boat. I mean, we know. We know Ships really, really well from ESL SEC, insane talent. I mean, he played second fiddle to Poison in Wendigo, but I mean, let's also be honest, Ships wasn't far behind, so the guy's insane. I mean, the only thing you could maybe say about Contact now is they have a little bit less firepower than they had. It's still insane, but I mean, Emmy and Letney to me are much of a muchness, very similar sort of player.
Sure.
You could probably bring in another fragger if you wanted to be more insane, but in this group, more than enough, I think, to deal with anyone that's here. Yeah. Mad Lions.
Like, to be fair, sorry, Mike, to interrupt you. I think that Emmy's actually, from switching from the coach role into the player role, I'd say he's actually done a pretty good job of it.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, him and Letney did play together for years. So.
Yeah, I know. I think he's transitioned really well, and he actually hit the ground running. He didn't, take a while. Another name that's really important to mention when you look at this team is Esperanto. He's a super talented individual who's got so much potential, but also
carries a long string of those.
He might get
decisions as a player though.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't get drowned out by the tier 3 scene, and never really gets to reach that full potential.
He has tried to drown himself in it though at times. It's like
it seemed that way.
Yeah, some players do tend to have that sort of self-destructive tendency, but also, I mean, the guy's super young, so I mean, we all know when we're young we do dumb things.
So we agree that Contact is a solid team. They're probably going to top the group at this point.
Yeah, the problem with Contact is they're super dangerous because if they click, they're just going to blow your heads off in that day.
Yeah, they were one of the last teams that were drafted in the Flashpoint 1 drafting stage. I think they were third last or something.
Because nobody actually wanted to play them. It's just one of those where it's if they get onto a heater, they're going to wreck you. But
I'd actually say they're a very spotty team in the sense that they, like you're saying, Sean, they can go absolutely supernova, but they're also one of those teams that doesn't seem to have a massive amount of contingency plans shooting people.
Yeah,
doesn't
they're like
matter.
a budget phase, basically.
Yeah, like a budget phase. I think that's a good way to describe them. But in the context of this group, they're a solid team.
Yeah, for me, like you put them against a top 10 team, man,
top 1 team. You say,
no, yeah, top 1's a different story. But even a top 10, I just feel like they're probably going to flake out, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, okay, so then the second choice was Mad Lions before heading into the group. You were saying, Sean, now with the knowledge you have and seeing their first match, do you think that Havu will be getting up on them?
I mean, like, who else does Harvard beat amongst all these teams that they have?
Like, probably beat Copenhagen Flames.
No, I'm saying, like, if you take out, like, if any other group, right, outside of Group A, like, who could you reasonably expect Harvard to, like, actually beat?
Envy.
Chaos?
No,
I don't know, dude.
No,
Chaos,
maybe not on land.
Chaos has Smuya, and Smuya's
I know.
like a madman. So.
Yeah,
it's really hard to say. I think Harvard is probably flattering to Deceivia. I don't think they're very good. So
I don't know. I think they could be dark horses. I think that they would give good competition to. I mean, I'd put them as favorites against August, and I think they'd give Fun Plus Phoenix a good run. I'm not a big fan of that Fun Plus Phoenix team. Anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there when we get to Group C.
I think to me, Group A is just it's contact and whoever else manages to win more than once.
Yeah,
basically is really what.
Yeah,
it is.
I agree.
So
bit of a suck fest.
I mean, a bit of a suck fest.
Okay, so that's the conclusion of Group A. So Group B.
I like how you're taking
Chaos.
charge, Matt. I'm enjoying this new side of you. What is this?
Sorry, Mike. I'm making you feel a bit hapless out there.
Hapless, but not hapless.
Got to move me into the middle there. I'm taking over the show.
No, cool. I like it. Keeping assertive. Go.
Chaos, Gen.G, Envy, and MIBR. By my opinion, probably the spiciest group.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. MIBR seem to be a very unspicy enchilada at the moment. It's just a shambles.
They are like plumbing the depths of how bad a team can be right now for a name that they have.
Considering the fan base they have, the multiple major winners in the team, the pedigree, it just seems like this thing is dead. Like, what can they do at this stage?
Oh my word! I just looked at their ranking. They are 26th in the world right now.
Let's contextualize that. We were just talking about Havu, who are a bunch of no-namers who are ranked 30, and MIBR are ranked 26th. That is just terrific in that context.
Do you know how many trophies they've won under the MIBR name?
None.
Do you know what I want to know? In the last time
they won
2018 was the last
August
one.
August of 2018.
And the next best team at that event was King Yuan. Yeah. So let's just keep that in the conversation as well. Like the only reason that was a $300,000 prize pool event is because it was a Zotac Cup Masters and they just have money to throw at events. So it's like that's not something that they can really be too proud of. So yeah, just like we've been saying, they've been going down for a long time now, and sort of every time you see their players talking about their disappointing performance, it's always like, yeah, but we're about to turn the corner, things are about to get better, we're working really hard, but it's just not showing in the results.
Already, bro.
That corner is a hard bank, man.
So did you guys see that Thorin video where he was talking about how they need to actually make it an international roster again, just because there isn't really anything available in the Brazilian scene? Because we've seen when they try to pick up players from Furia and elsewhere that it's kind of like the CIS scene where whichever lower team is in line for giving up a player, they're just like, okay, slap a huge number on it, make it unreasonable, make the player make a statement. I do like this team. I want to stay here. Best team, not going MIBR.
Yeah.
My own words.
Always seems to be the less developed regions that have these crazy contract issues, right? Because it's almost sometimes like, I'm not saying any of those orgs are scummy, but sometimes it's just these scummy orgs who are...
The kids are more...
Exactly. And they don't really see much of a prospect in their career, so they're going to take pretty anything they're offered, you know.
I think it's always a combination of those teams also just looking and going like, this could be my payday. I could make money here, so I'm going to put up an unreasonable number, and if they really want him, they'll pay me that. And if they don't, I've got like a player that now everyone knows is a prospect. So, I mean, it's not that they lose much, but you know, if you put a reasonable number on it, you might actually get paid. But apparently not. MIBR just don't have those options now because of this sort of approach. So I guess Thorin's got a great point. It's just open it up to being international. What he was also saying was that when they had Stewie and
sorry guys,
trying to break your mic and our ears, Sorry, viewers, listeners.
I'm trying to turn my fan off because it keeps bumping my door. Apologies, guys.
we actually couldn't tell until you wrecked our ears there. Thank you.
Yeah. There we go. Just to spoil my plan. Anyway, where were you?
Yeah. They obviously had Stewie and Tarek before, but I mean those are two very puggy players who are not really known for being very efficient communicators. Maybe Stewie more so, but I mean, if you're trying to do the sort of signature Fallen kind of Counter-Strike, you do need very good communicators in the team, guys who are going to be team players, not individual sort of pug stars. So, I mean, they would have to go with something like that. I think he's got a great point on it. It's just the question is, will they actually try to pick up, I don't know, a Swedish player or a Dane or somebody like that who could actually help them sort of get back on the right path.
Well, let's remember it's not unheard of for them to make an effort to try and get a European player. I remember Simple and Flamey were nearly on the aeroplane to fly to Brazil to join the team, and that literally fell through at the last second. So,
how often do you think Simple was cursing not going for 2 years? I mean, now he isn't, but let's be honest, he was stuck in literal hell for a couple of years after that.
And if I remember correctly, it wasn't by his decision that it didn't work out.
Yeah, Navi just told him.
Navi denied it. Yeah. Anyway, so MIBR is definitely the sore of the group. The really interesting combination is the three North American teams, or the American teams, should I say, Envy, Gen.G, and HAzE. Mm-hmm. You got some in Gen.G as well, obviously an ex-Envy player, so that's a nice bit of a storyline there between them.
Bit of spice, yeah. I mean, Som looked really good at DreamHack Anaheim, so got to imagine he's going to keep up that sort of, well, not exactly that sort of level of performance, because we don't know if that's a precedent yet, but sure. You got to imagine in a DAPS team anyway, because this is, again, when it comes to the right in-game lead, it does enable players, and you could kind of bank on them being able to do it in that context, whereas in the context of a context sort of team, which is just skilled aimers, it's a little bit more sporadic. It's harder to do it again because there aren't maybe the systems in place. So I think Gen.G should top this group. They've got the talent, they've got the leader in DAPS, who's going to get kicked at some point, maybe by season 2 and replaced by someone
Standards
else.
Law.
Jeez, can you imagine? Can you imagine if that happened?
It must be in his contract at this point that he just legally he cannot be replaced by Standards Law. Anybody else?
I mean, if you think about it, it's basically just it's like an American movie at this point. It's just multiple sequels where the same thing happens, repeat.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like
beating a dead horse.
Like Daps gets called into the boardroom and it's like, we're sorry, man, you've been replaced. And he's like, okay, just tell me who is it. And it's like, big reveal, the chair turns around and it's Stan all along.
Oh, God. Third time in a row.
That kind of vibe, like Blofeld in Bond,
Yeah.
It's the recurring villain who keeps showing up to spoil his party. But I think Daps is going to be partying by the end of the group stages. His team's definitely coming top. I think for me, the question here is who's going to come second? And I say it's a question, but it's not really a question in my mind. I think HAzE are coming second. I think Envy and MIBR are going to plumb the depths, and it's just going to be Gen.G and HAzE, yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with you, but I think Envy might just be able to make an upset or to happen enough for them to creep through to the playoffs. I'm not a fan of the roster, but I do think that they have the firepower to just pop off in a series and just, come through as the underdog and win it. So I think Envy should be a part of that conversation as well. MIBR, I think we're all in accordance that that's just not going to happen, which is such a pity. HAzE have been struggling a lot online, but I mean, that's just only indicative of so much. Can't really take those results and translate them directly to how they're going to perform on LAN.
I don't think they're a good team
already.
I really don't think they're a good team. I just think in the context of this group, on LAN, I think they'll be okay.
I think Smooya and Steel probably gel really well together. I think they've got similar fiery personalities and they can handle the banter and they enjoy that. So I think that's a really good combination.
Yeah, I think that's going to fuel this team to a degree. I mean, obviously, they made a late edition of Sick. Sick has been in some good teams in the past. He's a decent player, so I I think they're a little bit better for it.
He's also been in limbo for a long time now.
Mm.
You know, if you think back to that Misfits team, which had Sean Garres, Twists, and Sick as well, he was a hot prospect. He was on the same, maybe not on the same level of Twists, but he wasn't far away at that time. And people were talking about them sort of in conjunction with one another. And then Twists rocketed, ended up in Liquid, and Sick hasn't really been able to propel himself. So I'm glad to see him in the top team, though. I've always been a fan of Sick, and I hope that this is going to have a bit of longevity to it.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think some of these teams are, rife for changes potentially. Because also remember, in the context of Flashpoint, if you're not a top 20 team, by the end of the competition, you pay $100,000 fine, right?
It's not directly. I mean, they have a choice. It's not a given. But they can invoke that clause if you are outside of the top 20, yes.
Well, I think if
which
that's
MIBR is looking very, very likely at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these teams would be liable for that. I think that rule was thought of also when they thought they were getting higher quality teams than this. But I think just to sort of state my case on Flashpoint in general, despite the relative lack of quality of teams, it actually has been pretty fun to watch, because I think their whole sort of drafting system where they got the teams to sort of draft each other, and there was a bit of banter involved, and that was a pretty fun sort of pre-show. It actually did lead to some fairly balanced groups in a lot of ways, because obviously players want to try and set themselves up well, and everyone was trying to do that, so you don't really have that sort of draw where like the three best teams end up in the same group because of a random draw or something. So I actually thought that was a cool way to do it, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I think because of that to a degree, and the style of broadcast, it's actually still pretty entertaining to watch. I've really enjoyed it. So
yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's the most entertaining or the most attractive element of Flashpoints is the fact that it is something different, though. I mean, 5 versus 5 CS can only be so entertaining for so long. You need to find different ways to change the entertainment and change the value and the focus. So I like that they're evolving the game, keeping it interesting.
Yeah, I like the after show and everything with the beers. That's pretty cool. Like some of the things that the analysts are actually getting allowed to say. I mean, you always think of Thorin as pulling out that sort of that like giggly, like he. I'm going to say this thing that's a bit inappropriate, but I'll get away with it because I can sort of frame it. Now Thorin just straight says it. I mean, Sean Garres was spitting some fire as well. I was like, holy crap, Sean. I've never heard you say stuff like this, but that's part of the entertainment of it. It could maybe, I don't know, grate on one a little bit later, but I mean, for now, it's really cool. It's really refreshing. They've definitely got better talent than EPL on the online side. I mean, obviously, Henry and Machine and Sponge are great, but in the overall sense, I think Flashpoint's definitely won in that sense, and that's part of what's helping make this broadcast so entertaining, despite, I'd say, the relative lack of quality of the teams.
Yeah, it's been no secret that's been one of their main focal points, is just trying to load up on all the best talent. I mean, how much do you think ESL offered Henry, Machine, and Chad or Sponge to stay with ESL Pro League? Because like you were alluding to earlier, how you do that business deal, you go back and forth. I'm sure they went back and said, listen, we've been offered the X, Y, and Z by Flashpoint, and ESL Pro League probably felt incredibly compelled to keep them.
Potentially. I mean, they also, all three of them do live together in Malta, so that made flight arrangements easy.
I mean, the event was supposed to happen in Malta, was it not?
Yeah.
So
that's also part of probably why they would have been attracted to be involved with it in some way, because I can just sort of step out of the door and go to work, kind of thing, get paid more, no competition. But I think you're right, Matt. I mean, there's definitely some aggressive negotiation, because can you imagine what position ESL's broadcast would have been in if they hadn't gotten that trio? Then we're talking the lower tier of casters. I mean, and no offense to them, I'm aware I'm a much lower tier than the lower tier of caster myself. So, I mean, there's some really good guys, but it would mean that the product would be severely diminished. The only thing, of course, is those three are now going to probably work themselves into the ground for the season, because they're going to want them on as many games as possible.
Yeah, interestingly, they're working as a trio. They don't have like caster pairs, and they do the intro, they do the game, and they do the outro as well between the three of them.
You and I have done that. I mean, that was hard work. Let's be honest. We did a TV gig with that, where we were the panel and the casters, and It's very difficult. I mean, they're setting themselves up to be very, very tired by the end of this.
3 best of 3s a day as well. It looks
Holy
like.
shit! They better be.
But they do have 2 casting pairs, so not casting pairs, 2 casting trios rather.
Who's the other trio, by the way?
I think it's Hugo, just Harry, and is it Banks or? It wouldn't be Banks because Banks would be doing the interviewing. I'll check.
No, I mean, it could be.
There can't be interviewing going on because there's no land. So.
Oh, that's true. Actually, good point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but
I will find the information.
Tombas maybe.
Davey.
Oh, Davey. Okay, yeah. I saw Davey saying it. I like Davey.
But Davey was supposed to do the LAN finals.
Okay, so I'm just looking
doing it remotely there.
I'm looking at the talent list for season 12. They've got Davey as an analyst, and then they've got Frankie and Banks as reporters. So obviously, with the change of it now being online, that sort of throws Banks and Frankie's job out the window. I'm not sure if Davey will join them or not.
Davey wouldn't be able to join them, would he? Like, aren't they
Canada travel
restrictions?
ban,
I mean, he's Canadian, but
yeah. I mean, unless he's working from home.
Yeah, how are you gonna do that from home? Dude?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, again, like the central premise, the talent battle definitely Flashpoint's won that. So, and the ESL broadcast definitely feels more like I don't know, the B stream.
It just feels standard. There's nothing super fancy about it. It's very, very well produced. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think
it's standard ESL.
Any league in the world would want that, but it's just.
But it's standard ESL. I mean,
Flashpoint has won the broadcast battle, except if they could fix those fucking sound problems.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, you give them the benefit of the doubt of that just being like first stage jitters, right?
I don't know. I mean,
it's fourth stage jitters at this point. That same problem is.
It is face it though. They should know better. They should know how to do this.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Fair enough.
But it's always been a face it thing that there's been production issues. So I kind of half expected it, unfortunately. But the ESL broadcast to me, it's standard stuff. It's what they were doing in 2017. It's what we did in 2017 with ESL Africa. It's the same broadcast concept. So, I mean, I kind of hoped that maybe the Flashpoint thing would push them to new heights in this sense, but it didn't. You know, they just went with the let's get the best teams, and that'll kind of seal the deal for us. I had hoped they would do something cool. I guess the one thing they have done is using Skybox.
Yeah, that is true.
Which is kind of ironic, considering.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking that it's Anders' baby, or
it's Anders'.
He's at least
company.
one of the big sponsors behind it. Yeah. So let's just finish off the conversation we were having earlier on, just looking at the groups of Flashpoint. We sort of the consensus that Chaos and Gen.G should be topping Group B. Maybe Envy could, well, at least my opinion, Envy could be a dark horse there. And then Group C, Cloud9, Dignitas, Auglis, and Fun plus Phoenix might be the most hotly contested one. I don't know.
I think, I do agree with you. I think Group C is like, that has the potential for be like the closest teams overall, because Fun plus Phoenix, like, they looked good, and then that last game where they just got slammed by C9 was like super surprising. I expected a lot more from Fun plus Phoenix at that point. I mean, it's old heroic roster, Cadian and the boys, so like I expected more from them there, but they just collapsed on that third map on Inferno.
They should have actually 2-0'd the series. I mean, after Cloud9 basically like handed them the win and then sort of took it back again in second OC. You kind of thought it was a 2-0, but Fun plus Phoenix, they were like, no, it shall not be so.
I mean, it makes for a very, very interesting group, though, because Dignitas did not beat Auglis with any... that wasn't a convincing victory by any
not
means.
at all.
So Auglis could genuinely knock out Cloud9. They have looked very, very good for a team that's wandering around in, like... granny jerseys and stuff.
Oh geez, that was one of the most fire comments from Sean Gaz, and I think after the first map or something where
when Auglis beat Dignitas on map 1.
Yeah, he's like that's got to make you feel like shit, being beaten by a team that doesn't even have jerseys. That just makes you feel like shit, man.
Got wrecked by casuals.
Jeez. Yes. I mean, let's keep in mind that Dignitas have been burdened with Guardian.
He's looked okay though.
Guardian at this level, Guardian can still do quite a bit of work.
I mean,
he wasn't like the Na'Vi level train wreck that we saw last year. This is like probably the level that Guardian is at these days.
Yeah, I think Dignitas.
I think Dignitas probably has big match temperament than Cloud9, but doesn't mean Cloud9's by any means out of this. Like,
Yeah, personally, I think that Dignitas are missing HAzE.
Oh yeah, I mean he was a hard
really
carry.
Badly.
Like he carried their ass in all of their games.
I think I would actually have Cloud9 as favorites over Dignitas.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean then therefore that would bring us. Wait. Before we go to Cloud9 properly, best banter so far from a player in this whole thing was Guardian shouting about, "Why are you baiting?" Did you guys?
I don't know. This Muya shit was funnier, dude. When he's like, "Come at me, come at me."
No, I liked Guardians because I've never heard Guardians like genuinely say anything because he's always sort of polite and quiet and does the interviews, and there's Guardian like sort of going at the other team. I thought that was cool. I think it's sort of emblematic of the fact that in Na'Vi there's all this expectation of how he's going to be amazing, and there's all this pressure in the CIS team and this is sort of his home part of the world. Here there's no expectation, there's no pressure. He could just play.
Yeah, well, he's actually been gifted a golden opportunity now to actually just put that nightmare of a year behind him and show, future potential organizations that he still has what it takes to compete at this level and put up good numbers and AWP against some of the top AWPers. So he's actually got a pretty good opportunity now to try and keep his name in the mix and stay relevant.
I mean, if you think about it, at the end of the day, that is exactly what, or that's one of the things that Flashpoint has given us, is that, like, I mean, even last year, how many of these teams sitting between like 11 and 30 would we have actually even known much about?
No,
and yet now
much.
We like know about Contact, Havu's, like, Crop, Gen.G, all these teams are growing. So it's like, given the trend for just insane growth that we've seen this year for CSGO, and look, it's terrible that we're benefiting from the situation worldwide with the virus and all the rest, but we are seeing mad numbers on streams at the moment. That's definitely going to contribute at the very least to perhaps some level of increased investment.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of these teams, like it's basically, I think, getting to that point now where you might not be in a top 10 team, but you can still make a living on these tier 2, tier 3 teams. And that's the kind of thing that is where Guardian is right now. But Dignitas is like a perfect level team for him because you can still do damage at that level. He comes with a big name. Teams are more willing to bank on the big name because he can do work at the level they need him to, and he's going to provide a bigger marketing push than a player with equivalent skills but absolutely no name.
Yeah, like 5,000 followers on Twitter or something like that. You never really heard of him much before. Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing, just going back to the teams, the one thing I must I think Flashpoint have done really well is they've made the best of their situation with the teams that they've got. Like you were saying, Sean, they're painting the picture of, like, instead of saying, we got the lower teams, they're actually like highlighting these teams and trying to create the content and the exposure around them. They're just making the most of situation that they currently have. So I think that they've actually made it look pretty in a way, and they've actually made me attracted to the league, even though they don't have those top teams. I mean, they've only got 5 out of their 12 teams are in the top 20. So, I mean, that means 12 of those, 7 of those teams are out of the top 20. Is like quite a scary feat when you think about it. This is $1 million league, and you've got 5 of the teams are in the top 20.
But I think something fundamental has changed in Counter-Strike in the last sort of 6 months where, like Sean was saying, you weren't thinking of any of these teams before, but even during the sort of the minor qualifier, there were 100K people on some of those streams watching, like, essentially no-name teams just because there was no other Counter-Strike to watch. So it seems like the viewership hunger is there for Counter-Strike regardless necessarily of the level. I mean, obviously people aren't going to be watching sort of, African teams or something, but at this level anyway, of course. I mean, in South Africa, we're going to do TV broadcasts and have done that sort of thing, but it's a different, it's a different region. That's not necessarily something the international community is looking at, but these are the kind of teams you'd expect to be playing in MDL and ESEA Advanced and that sort of thing. And I mean, it's the kind of teams that we've all casted for free, and to 100 people, 200 people or whatever, 10 people sometimes. And now they're sort of gifted this opportunity. And I think in the context of ESL's move to sort of cut down the amount of teams that are in ESL Pro League, it's also meant that some teams that would have been getting sort of paid are now not getting paid. They're in MDL. And there was a lot of talk around that of, how teams in the sub top, tier 2, tier 3 kind of teams would now not be able to get sort of revenue, whereas these players were asked, and a lot of these teams are salaried. In something like Flashpoint, you have the opportunity as a team in that space to actually get revenue, to get revenue share in it, to get paid. I think that's a very good thing. Again, it's probably not Flashpoint's initial plan to do, but I think it's sort of an opportunity that they've taken advantage of, that sort of ESL created. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I've always, we've done a lot of sort of tier 3, tier 4 games and teams and stuff, and it's very cool when we see players like the Poisons and the Cirques and what sort of graduating to tier 1. I think we will see some of these players also going on to that. So it's cool to get to see it, and because Counter-Strike is so popular right now, 1 million players concurrent the other day.
Yeah.
And it's still surging. I think people are going to be happy to watch this.
It's really good for the longevity of the scene as well, to be able to have your players at the tier 2 and the tier 3 level be able to make a living off of playing at that standard. Maybe at the lower end, but still enough to commit their lives to it and live independently.
That's how you build a scene, though.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's the goal, is to be able to have those grassroots be able to commit the time to build their way up, and that's exactly what we're creating the foundation for at the moment.
Absolutely, and you don't get that in most other esports. Let's be honest. I mean, this is one of the problems that games like Dota, for instance, have, where unless you're one of the top teams and you're contending at TI, it's very difficult to actually be anywhere. I mean, already orgs have enough trouble making money in Counter-Strike. Can you imagine if you're not a sort of a top 20 team in Dota, what you can do? Probably not much.
I mean, the thing is, Valve hasn't even monetized CSGO that well for the teams either. So,
yeah.
I mean, we were just mentioning last night, like, a couple of things that could be done to both increase a team's marketability and allow the team to, make money itself just off the game. Valve is super anti that and will only release things according to their own schedules. So we sort of just have to suck it up and deal with it a little later.
Suck it up and deal with it. The Counter-Strike fans' general default mode when thinking about Valve and their approach to the game. Just like, Valve failing forward with CSGO, it seems like. It's just like, despite their best efforts to not help the game go forward,
it still gets bigger and better. Well, not only will it not die, it's actually growing.
Yeah, I think it's a testament also just to like the format of the game, the quality of the initial concept, how good it is to watch, and also all the sort of third-party tournament organizers, the ESLs and the Flashpoints and the Blasts and all of these people who just keep driving this forward regardless of what Valve do. So I mean, there's a ton of people like the Thorns and the Richard Lewises who make content. It's just, there's so many people dedicated to making it work, and the developer hasn't done that much, and still just the will of all the people involved, the will of the players, it's just continue to keep this thing going. It's an amazing train to be on.
But again, that's also like the way to keep a game going for 20 years successfully. You're not going to have a game be successful for that long just based off of the developers keeping it alive. You need to actually build a community which is going to be taking over that role to keep it evolving and developing. Anyway, on that note, let's just close off the conversation now for Group C, because we haven't actually spoken much about Cloud9. Fun plus Phoenix, we mentioned a bit. I was just saying they've been looking abysmal, almost is the word I want to use to describe them after they looked so hot. I mean, they won an event as Heroic, if I remember correctly, or at least they qualified for something big not too long ago.
I don't think they'll stay abysmal. They shouldn't. They've got too much pedigree to stay abysmal, but it was bad, so...
I don't know. I mean,
you're also saying Cloud9 are great, and then you're calling these guys abysmal, and they could have very easily beaten Cloud9. So make up your mind, man.
Yeah, maybe being a bit wishy-washy, I suppose. But my point still stands that I'm not too confident in this Fun Plus Phoenix team. I'm a bit concerned about Stavin as well, because I think I rate him really highly, and I think he might get stuck in a bit of a prison here if things continue this way. It could be like a North type of thing again for him. Not that he was in North. I just mean like a similar situation to what happened there. So yeah, I don't know. I think this needs to be this is a big opportunity for this team to sort of make a mark on 2020 and turn things around.
Like, the one thing I can say about this team is that, like, they are backed by big Chinese money. So they have a very good incentive to keep improving this team if they can keep it in the top 20. So I mean, I think Snappy and Cadian I think they run dual IGL system, don't they? Or is Cadian I think Cadian's the secondary and Snappy's the primary or something like that.
It does seem a bit weird though. Like, maybe one of them is sort of surplus in this whole thing. They could potentially bring in another fragger.
Yeah. But I mean, given the problems that North has, you could maybe sneak one of their players in the near future. There's a couple of the other Danish teams wandering around. I mean, the thing with the Danes is they speak good enough English, and they share enough of a language with Sweden and Norway that they could maybe get like a player like a HAzE or something like that down the line. They certainly have the money to buy players out. If they wanted to. It's just whether this org is willing to invest.
Look, my opinion on this is I think you're being a bit premature on them being horrendous. I think they still have potential in this group to maybe even come second. I don't think they'll top the group, but they're good enough that they should be able to do something. Yeah, I don't think August are the team who's coming last year. Let's be clear on that. Are they going to do anything then come last?
I don't know. Like that's what I'm saying.
Are you believing in the granny jersey power of
I believe in the 300 IQ, 15 deed chess of Finesse, the mastermind, the man who planned
he's looking
who single-handedly brought down the entire empire of Brazil in CS:GO.
This is true. I mean, he is the master, and he's looking pretty fit as well these days. Looks like he's been hitting the gym.
No longer weighs 20 kilos.
Yeah, sort of 25-ish now. I mean, I do agree there's potential.
Even their HLTV page is like the most hilarious thing because like FNS is in a Cloud9 jersey, YA's in a Complexity jersey, Sabros is in I don't know what jersey that is. Wardell's got Ghost and Infinite's in the Chaos jersey. It's like,
but
literally is just.
So another question on this one. I mean, they look decent because YA fragged really well. Like to me, I don't think that's going to happen again. Like consistently at least, because there's nothing suggesting YA is that kind of player in Complexity. The only player here that I'd say is somebody you can bank on to always get a decent amount of frags is Wardell. He is a better player than should be in this team, but for whatever reason, he's always been stuck in lesser teams, presumably because of things behind the scenes. So, I mean, aside from
this August team knocked out Chaos, dude.
Yeah.
They knocked out Chaos. They made it. They qualified for the minor. I think like you're being perhaps a little bit more down on them than you should. I think a little bit unfair.
Well,
they have potential. Fuck you too. I mean,
see, that's where you go. Results. Where you're just like, okay, intellectual arguments not working, or I'll take the Twitter approach.
I don't know. Look, I trust in the power of FNS. I think this team is going to be like you can upgrade this team as well.
Yeah.
Like just because they're junk now. I mean, they're obviously looking for an org now. It's actually surprising that they've gone as long as they have without an org. They have a minor spot at the moment. They do well enough at the minor. They can maybe make the major. That's a very, very attractive buy for a big org.
It's got to be bankable,
TSM buy-in or something like that. Because there are still a couple of the big orgs in especially League that haven't gotten their feet wet in CS:GO as yet.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. To me, okay, let me be clear on where I'm on this. I think FNS, Sabros, Wardell, those are three names you can build a team around. I don't believe in the other two, despite the fact that Ye was really good yesterday. It's just, I think there's three decent pieces, but they would need to change the other two if they're really going to be sustainable as a team on an upward trajectory. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, Sabrosa also has had his issues as well. Maybe I just believe in him because of his dodgy clips from back in the day. But yeah, I struggle to believe in the longevity of this team. But prove me wrong, I guess.
Well, it's funny. I mean, like, I think it wasn't even a month ago, Sabrosa was putting out a tweet about how he's probably going to be putting CS on the back burner and waiting for Valorant to come out. So I think that prospect is slightly different now.
But isn't that like every single tier 2 American player? Though?
I know, but it's just so indicative of how quickly things have turned around for them, and I think they didn't realize how serious this was going to get so quickly. Like you said, they've got the spot at the minor. They're going to be working a lot harder now and practicing a lot more. To put up those performances
evidence
to attract
presented
the organizations
that would seem to not indicate longevity here. So, undermining your own argument.
You talking to me or
all of you collectively? Okay, you're one person in my mind.
Oh no, wait! August didn't make it.
August
didn't make it through to the minor.
Okay.
He got 2-0'd by Gen.G. All right, okay.
Undermining himself again.
Oh no, wait!
Okay.
What that? Oh, dude, I'm so confused. Like HLTV showing that they still have a game to play against E United to qualify.
From what I see, they lost to Triumph in their last opportunity.
Oh, okay. It just hasn't been updated on what's the name?
Yeah, so that's like questionable at best. They lose a best of 3 to Triumph, which is an opportunity to qualify for the minor. Yeah, sure.
Like America
online's just
CS.
a shit show. Yeah, there's literally one of the most difficult aspects of esports scene.
So, boys, what we've proved here is the South African desire to be polite is to nod. Yes, you're right, Sean. You're right, but no, you weren't right. It's just what we do.
I wasn't right. I was completely.
We're polite in South Africa. We're like, yeah. Everyone who comes here says South Africans are super polite.
So where do we stand on Group C then? Who are the top two teams?
Cloud9. We didn't go there yet.
Okay, Cloud9.
Cloud9. You said they're the best team in this group. Substantiate it. Make me believe.
I think that they're the best team in this group. I think that they've had a bit of difficulty in the past couple of weeks, but that was always going to happen after the high rise that they were riding not too long ago. They were always going to drop down and also come back down to earth slightly. I think that this team is incredibly close or closely knit. And I think when it comes to just a level of understanding amongst them, they should be challenging or outshining Auglis and Fun Phoenix by quite a margin, and then Dignitas will be their greatest competition.
Fun Phoenix does sound like some kind of Chinese toy. I'm gonna Fun Plus. Even that also sounds like a toy as well, actually. But I don't know. Where are you on it, Sean?
I think they're getting out of the group, but I don't know if they're the best team in the group. Like the problem with Cloud9 is that like their victory over FPX was like shady or not shady. Like it was not a great win in the second map. They had to take it to overtime, which does obviously speak to like the level of clutchability of the team. Certainly, they've shown improved play on LAN.
But it shouldn't have gone there though. I mean, they had a very decent lead. They should have closed it out, and they allowed them to come back.
Like, that's what I'm saying. It's such a difficult team to like really put together, like to get a handle on, because they have like solid tactics and they got like solid and they have like solid firepower, but like it's just that. Like if you were like, okay, they're just okay, like then it doesn't seem like a team that's going to like spring a mad upset. I think they'll match up well against every team in this group, but they can also lose to every team in this group. And that's just the thing. Like Dignitas, I think they'll lose to Dignitas and come second. But I think Auglis is probably going to be a tough game for them. Maybe I expect them to beat Auglis, but I think Dignitas just has too much for them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I just want to put it out to all the South African fans here that Profeci hates Cloud9, and you should shout at him on Twitter because he's an asshole. So, yeah.
They shot at me anyway, so.
Yeah, I think if Dignitas were at full strength, it would be a different conversation. But for me, the way that they are with Guardian in their ranks, the amount of time they've had to work with, I think Cloud9, like you're saying, Sean, their firepower is their greatest asset, right? Like that's mainly what they orientate their game around.
Yeah, at this level, their firepower is like their greatest asset.
Yeah, sure. I agree that it's not like a sustainable advantage or strength that they can rely on as they work their way up the ladder.
So I managed to avoid having to say anything about Cloud9, so we can move on now. This is good. Well, I was waiting for you to make me say it, so okay,
no, we're just gonna let you have it. If you so desperately don't want to say anything, then go for it, man.
No,
continue the conversation.
I'll say I'm actually in agreement with Prof there. I struggle to see how they're going to necessarily beat Dignitas, and I do agree. The matchup against Auglis could go very badly for them, depending on maps that they get. I think will be a pretty important one there. I mean, we've seen this team tends to be pretty stubborn when it comes to picking certain maps, despite losing them repeatedly. It's like, well, I'm just going to keep going for this. Believe in my system, and I get that. I mean, if you believe in your preparation, sure. I mean, they've got a good coach, but I just think they still need a little bit more time. They're still not.
They've played 13 maps with this lineup, dude. Like, yeah, it's obviously the classic lineup, but in the last 3 months, they've played 13 maps with these guys. So, like, they're 100% on Nuke. Vertigo is also 100%, but they've only played it twice. Inferno, they've played 4 times, 75% win rate. So it's like, I mean, they matched up fairly solidly against Fnatic, and Fnatic is no joke on Inferno. So they I think that this is going to be a tricky team for Cloud9 to beat because they match up pretty well. Overpass, they got slammed by Fnatic, and obviously Cloud9 does like Overpass, but then again, Cloud9's Overpass has been wonky at times as well. So it's like a very difficult matchup because you look at Dig and you're like, oh, I remember all these names, but it's like those names are from the past. We don't know what they're playing right now.
So I mean, isn't Dignitas kind of like when the Rolling Stones are touring these days, or Bruce Springsteen or whatever? They're gonna play the hits, come out on stage, make everybody excited. Of course, not now with coronavirus, but before that, it's just coming out, playing the hits, reminding everyone why we used to love them.
Yeah, but the problem is that like if Dignitas is the Rolling Stones, then Cloud9 right now is sort of like the indie band that nobody knows and who's opening for them. Like, which one do you like more? You don't know, you haven't heard enough of the indie band to know how, to really gauge them against the stuff.
That's probably a good way to put it. I mean, I like Cloud9. I mean, again, we have a long association with JT and Sonic, and of course the coach TC. We've all been casting their games for years and following their careers, so we want them to succeed. Again, I just feel I feel this team, Cloud9 anyway, they're not quite there yet, but they keep showing the potential. It's just they need to consistently show the potential because we've seen it very big highs and very high peaks and very low sort of troughs in their performance, where they're either really they're surprising people or they're looking pretty dire. So I just hope they can find a more consistent average that's on the higher end.
So what you're saying is they're always surprising people.
Yeah, they're always surprising people. I just want them to be
Never
surprising
performing
for the right...
as expected.
Yeah, I just want them to be surprising for the right reasons. I think they need to find that consistency, and when they do that, I'll believe in them a little bit more. I mean, I'm still watching all their games and supporting them because the heart lies there, but I'm talking from a purely intellectual side. The lack of consistency is probably what's going to mean that they might actually end up playing in a match to try and stay in the tournament at some point. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about them. So they could top the group, or they could be in a tough situation. Again, the consistency is why it's tough for me to sort of be 100% in on them. I think Dignitas will make it through, but whoever the second place team is, there's actually 3 teams here in my mind that could take it.
Okay, so that's it then for Group C. Pretty much, as we mentioned going into that conversation, the most closely contested group, because we don't really have a clear-cut top 2 teams we think are going to be making it.
Indeed. So, I don't know, we had a couple of other things we could maybe talk about, but we've been talking about Counter-Strike for pretty long now, so I kind of want to end it pretty soon, yeah, because, my coffee's running out, and that means energy's pretty low, so... anything you guys want to touch on with finality? I mean, ESL Pro League's going on, but it has only just started, so I feel like maybe that's a conversation for next week.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could also just say that N seems to find new ways to disappoint their fans every day.
Yeah, what I'll say is if we're going to get into the ESL conversation, we could touch on for another hour because there's so many different things to touch on. The new Vitality team, the teams like Godsent and Spirit coming in who have been performing well lately, not really, considered as favorites heading into the event, but the team who are actually looking good when you consider recent results. So I think there's a lot of different conversations we could get into about that if we wanted to. But if we open that door, we have to go all the way.
No.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole that connects to a massive complex of tunnels created by the Romans in ancient times. Too much exploring to do in too little time. So we'll hit that one next week. I think we've had a good conversation here, so thanks for checking out the show. It's been Mid-Round Call. I'm Extremes, and of course HAzE and Profeci with me on this one. This the non-essential CSGO podcast, because of course BTN is the quintessential CSGO podcast. We're ancillary to that, but we like talking about Counter-Strike, and we hope that you guys have enjoyed it as well. In the next episode, I'll be less down on us and more up on some of these ESL Pro League teams when we get to talk about them. So do join us for that one. We hope that you guys are safe wherever you are. Of course, things going on in the world that are real scary, so do look after yourselves, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.
Bye.